Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kevin Hiatt. I am the AJNR podcast editor, and I'm lucky to be joined today by the one and only Dr. Jeff Ross, who is a professor of radiology at the Mayo Clinic in Arizona and recently served as the editor-in-chief for the AJNR over a period of 8 years. Dr. Ross, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And similar to a previous interview with Dr. Mauricio Castillo, I would love to hear your insight on what it takes to be a good reviewer, and we'll let you take it from there.
Great. Thank you so much. I will go ahead. I've got a brief presentation here with a number of slides that I'll go through just to kind of solidify my thoughts. And certainly I would recommend to the viewers to go, if you haven't already, to listen to and view Dr. Castillo's couple of interviews, because great words of wisdom there, and you'll see some overlap between, because at some high level, I think, a lot of editors-in-chief face the same things, so we kind of have the same view and maybe the same gripes about things. So I'll go ahead and try to share my screen, and hopefully you can see that okay. Okay, great. So, as we take the broad picture, let's think about what the functions, why do journals exist at all? And, dating back to, the 17th century, these are kind of the four things that journals do. They provide some provenance of what the manuscript is. There's some level of, you can call it certification, but the quality of the submission, and that's what we'll talk about today. Peer review, certainly there's an important archival function, and then there's this general dissemination of information. So those are really the four broad things that journals do. So as we talk about peer review in particular, there's just a number of references I would point you to. And so there's a nice paper by Dr. Provenzale and Stanley, kind of old, but still works very well in AJR. And then as listed a few other ones, I also would point you to some more general information that I've always find interesting, which is the Scholarly Kitchen website, which is more general academic publishing, but it's, I think, a very good source of information. And kind of on the kind of other side is Retraction Watch, which really gets into the nitty-gritty side of publishing and what papers are being retracted and why. So that's also, I think, a very good area to just learn about what's happening. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about peer review. And it really, again, this part of certification of the quality, and what does, it's a broad measure. What is quality, right? It's some type of scientific merit. Maybe there's new insights. Somehow it's advancing the field. There should be a logical methodologic foundation. So kind of the nuts and bolts of how the study is put together and the logic for that. And then the other subjective side is what is, why? Why do we care? What's the importance for the current literature? Is it relevant? Is there some novel aspect? Is it a particular technology? And the current one would be photon counting CT. Sure, it's novel technology. The bar to entry is going to be lower because of that novel technology. And, ancient history now, but when I was a resident, the novel technology was MR. So that was, the area, if you're going to publish, that would be the area that you were doing. What is the scope of it? And maybe, it's just the size of the population. The study's been done before, but never to the scope. And the authors have really expanded what they're looking at. So those are the two general areas for evaluating the quality of submission. So you're a reviewer, you've done through the process, your name's been added, you've been picked, an email goes out to you, and then what happens when you receive that link? So first of all, thank you for being a reviewer, taking your time. We know it, we feel it's a great privilege that you give your time and talents to the journal, and so that's, we really couldn't do it without you. So thank you. And then when you see that link, I would, implore you to actually answer the link one way or the other. And if it's a negative, it's pretty quick, but not answering the link, just, it just hangs out there on our side, and it's becomes a little bit more, are they going to answer? Are they not going to answer? Do you wait a week? So it'd be good if one way or the other you decide, uh, both are fine. You can say yes, you can say no, but just do it. When you see it, take a look at the paper. It usually has the abstract associated with it. You can read that. Do you have expertise in the topic? And I know Dr. Castillo covered that, but I mean, it doesn't, I would say 98% of the time, it's going to be a topic where you should have expertise in. That's why we are going out to you. Not an absolute requirement. There are papers, maybe it's so cutting edge, we don't have anybody in a particular category that is possible. Or we've gone through 12, sending out 12 emails to 12 different reviewers and nobody's responded. So we're really trying to figure out, can this paper be reviewed? So most of the time it will be your area of expertise. Critical topic. Again, I'll come back to this again and again. Do you have time to do the review? Please think about your calendar. And again, it's okay to say no. I would rather have that no quickly. We can move on with life and keep the ball rolling. So, do you have time? Think about these secondary questions of what would make you not review. Certainly, if you're biased or conflicted regarding the submission, or if you have personal knowledge, same institution, we really don't want you to be reviewing because of that bias, potential bias. And again, let the office know if things change. Life goes on, emergencies happen. We totally understand that. And if you can't you say you can do the review, but now you can't just email and we can do it. We'll take you off the list and move on. It's not a ding against you. That we're not holding grudges on this. We're just trying to get the manuscripts, the best reviews, and as quickly as possible. So, and I put down there, like, for me as the editor, the worst thing you can do is accept and just do nothing. The responses go out and you don't, and the reminders go out and 3 reminders go out and there's no response. And I'm only bringing this up because, trust me, it happens a fair amount. So please don't be one of those people. Just respond and say no, and that would be great. Actually performing the review, I know, again, Dr. Castillo went through that. It's all dependent upon your style, how you kind of learn, and what your mode is. For me personally, kind of how I do it, I prefer kind of printing it out with paper. My mind works a little bit better that way, but I've done it, on iPads and, computer screens, whatever happens to be there, that's fine. Ideally, I would take a quick kind of survey of the paper. I'd read the abstract fully, and then I'm been blessed with being able to read fairly fast with pretty decent comprehension, I think. So I read quickly through the paper, and then I make a few notes, and then ideally I put it away and don't think about it for maybe a day, a few hours at least, and then I come back to it. My mind has reset. And my subconscious has percolated up with some questions about the paper, and then I tackle it again, and I go through a little bit more of a deep dive, section by section, and to come up with the final review, and then put it together in some hopefully coherent and logical format. And you can see in yellow there, the tone of the review, please keep it neutral. And again, these things that I am pointing out that seem obvious, I'm only pointing them out because I've seen it. So trust me, I'm not making it up. So, tone of the review should be do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Just nice and neutral. Doesn't have to be over the top friendly or over the top nasty. Just kind of neutral. My other kind of minor pet peeve is, again, as a reviewer, you are not a copy editor. There is a big difference between a reviewer and a copy editor. So I don't want a review that talks about every punctuation point and grammar style and the structure of them. One sentence needs help with language and, and structure, that's fine. But you as a reviewer should be thinking and writing about what's the scientific content of this paper and is it applicable to our journal. So for me, and again, what would be my perfect review to come through that makes me happy? I find my happy spot when I see these types of reviews. Start off with identify the paper, identify the manuscript number. And again, I say that because reviews have gotten swapped. If you're a busy reviewer, you may have a couple reviews at the same time. And again, I've seen it. It goes in and you've done the wrong review. So identify the paper, list quickly the pros and cons, just a couple bullet points of what's good and what you think is less good. Give a brief summary of the paper, a general summary. I think that helps you to distill everything down as the reviewer. Certainly helps the editor recognize that the reviewer's done their due diligence and understands what the paper's about. And I think it helps the author. The author can see that you actually, as a reviewer, have done your due diligence. Maybe a general comment section, you don't have to, but then you go into the specifics of the section reviews. I think it helps to break them out as a numbers. Bullets sometimes don't translate too well, so numbering is nice. And then a summary is a separate paragraph, or you can put that into only for the editor. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be into the main review that you do. So always keep in mind as a reviewer that whatever you say may or may not be followed by the editor. There are a lot of other factors that go into making the final decision. So again, don't be offended if you say reject and it actually gets accepted. There are other things. And also don't be offended that your word for word verbatim may not go out actually to the author. It will be edited. That's their function. They're curating, the editor is curating the reviews and to send them out to the author, what they think, bringing everything together, what's important. On the other side, what do I think is not a helpful review? Again, no review. Not doing it is not a helpful review. So I'll stress this point again. The second part is what I call the 2-sentence review. So that's not either good or bad. That's not particularly helpful. So if it's that poor of quality, then probably part of that is on the editorial team. It was really that unsatisfactory of a paper, then it probably should have been cut initially with an editorial review, because these are papers that come out to reviewers, should have been screened by the editorial staff and then sent out when they think there's a chance of being published. If language is a problem, let the journal know. A lot of services out there, they're on the website for the journal for help with translation to make it a little bit better. The other type is, again, the copy editing review with minimal discussion of the scientific points, but a lot of discussion about actually the structure and English grammar, which I really don't want to see. The other type is I'm having a really bad day type of a review and I'm grumpy. So the snarky tone, don't need that. That will be edited out no matter what. I always read like every aspect to try to make everything very neutral, because no reason to really get people riled up and out of joint about that. And again, if you have very specific comments, private comments to the editor, there is that section. I urge you to put that into that component in the review site. The other aspect that I see a fair amount is from the review side is the comments that are never going to be done by the authors. So asking to go back, we don't like this, and completely redo the study and then resubmit it is not viable. They're just going to move on to another journal. So so my examples are, it took 5 years to get the current study population, and then I'm asking them to go back, come back when you have double the population. That's not a very helpful comment because no one's going to do it. Or, gosh, this should have been a prospective study, but it took them 10 years to get the retrospective study done. It's also not a helpful comment. So these gigantic changes are never going to be done. So just the practical nature of the comments.
This concludes part 1 of our interview. Please check out part 2 to hear the rest of Dr. Ross's advice about reviewing an article.